There is a plant that has been formally tested and ranked as the single most nutrient-dense food on the planet. Not a supplement, not a powder, an actual living plant you can grow in your backyard. It scored a perfect 1,000 out of 1,000 on the ANDI nutrient density scale. It beat out every superfood, every green powder, every expensive supplement stack sold in health food stores. And almost nobody grows it. Most gardeners walk right past it. Most seed catalogs barely mention it. The nutritional science community confirmed what it can do over a decade ago, and the gardening world still acts like it doesn't exist. That gap between what's been proven and what people actually plant is where your biggest opportunity sits right now. And today, we're going to close that gap. Let's start with the plant itself, because if you've heard the name before, you probably dismissed it. Watercress, that's the plant. In 2014, researchers at William Patterson University published a study in the CDC journal Preventing Chronic Disease that ranked 41 fruits and vegetables by nutrient density. They measured the concentration of 17 critical nutrients, things like potassium, fiber, protein, calcium, iron, zinc, folate, and vitamins A, B6, B12, C, D, E, and K, per calorie. They created a scoring system, and watercress scored a perfect 100 out of 100, beating every single fruit and vegetable tested, including kale, spinach, Swiss chard, and collard greens. The next closest was Chinese cabbage at 91.99. Kale came in at 49.07. Spinach scored 86.43. Broccoli was at 34.89. Watercress wasn't slightly ahead. It was in a different category entirely. And yet walk into any garden center, count the varieties of kale on display, count the spinach options, count the lettuce blends, then look for watercress. You probably won't find it. You might not even find the seeds. The most nutrient-dense plant ever formally tested in a peer-reviewed study is treated like a forgotten herb, something chefs put on a plate as garnish, not something serious gardeners grow for food security or health. That disconnect is what this video is really about, because watercress is just the beginning. What we're really going to explore today are the plants that science has confirmed are nutritional powerhouses, but that the mainstream gardening world still ignores because they don't fit into the typical seed catalog model of big harvests and pretty pictures. These are plants that give you more nutrition per square foot, per dollar, per hour of labor than almost anything else you could grow. And most people have never planted a single one. Let's go deeper. Watercress and why it dominates. Most people think watercress needs a stream or a pond. That's the first misconception that keeps people from growing it. Yes, watercress grows naturally along waterways, but it also grows incredibly well in containers, raised beds, and even standard garden soil as long as you keep it consistently moist. You can grow it in a shallow tray on your porch with an inch of standing water beneath the pot. You can grow it in a self-watering container. You can tuck it into a shady corner of your garden where lettuce would bolt in a week. Here's what makes watercress different from every other green you could grow. Per calorie, it delivers more combined nutrition than any other vegetable. That matters because most of us are eating plenty of calories, but are still nutritionally deficient. The average American diet is high in energy and low in actual micronutrients. Watercress flips that equation. 100 grams of watercress has only 11 calories. But packed into those 11 calories is 72% of your daily vitamin A, 43% of your vitamin C, over 100% of your vitamin K, significant calcium, manganese, and potassium, and a suite of antioxidant compounds that have been studied for their role in cancer prevention. And it grows fast. You can harvest watercress in as little as 3 weeks from planting. It regrows after cutting. It spreads on its own. In mild climates, it produces food nearly year-round. In cold climates, it keeps producing well into fall and starts early in spring, long before most other greens are ready. The real advantage, though, is the compounding effect. When you grow watercress, you're not just getting one harvest of one nutrient. You're getting a continuous supply of the most concentrated nutrition available from any plant, for months, from a space as small as a window box. Compare that to dedicating a 4x8 raised bed to lettuce that gives you water, fiber, and not much else. It's not even close. There's another layer to this that most people miss entirely. Watercress belongs to the Brassicaceae family, the same family as broccoli, cabbage, and mustard. That matters because this family of plants produces glucosinolates, sulfur-containing compounds that your body converts into isothiocyanates. These are the compounds that researchers have been studying for decades in connection with cancer prevention. Watercress is particularly rich in one called PEITC, phenethyl isothiocyanate, which has shown activity against several types of cancer cells in laboratory and clinical studies. A small pilot study at the University of Southampton found that daily consumption of watercress increased measurable levels of protective antioxidant compounds in the blood of participants within hours, not weeks, hours. This is a food that begins shifting your biochemistry almost immediately after you eat it, and it costs pennies to grow. The gap between its value and its popularity is almost absurd when you lay out the data like this. Moringa, the tree they don't want you to grow. If watercress is the most nutrient-dense vegetable, moringa is arguably the most nutrient-dense plant overall that you can grow in your yard. Moringa oleifera, sometimes called the drumstick tree or the miracle tree, has been studied extensively in tropical and subtropical regions. The leaves contain all 9 essential amino acids, making it a complete protein source, which is almost unheard of in the plant kingdom. Gram for gram, moringa leaves have 7 times the vitamin C of oranges, 4 times the calcium of milk, 4 times the vitamin A of carrots, 3 times the potassium of bananas, and 2 times the protein of yogurt. Those numbers aren't from a health blog. They come from published analyses by the USDA and the National Institutes of Health. Moringa has been used for centuries in parts of Africa, India, and Southeast Asia as a primary food source, particularly in communities dealing with malnutrition. International aid organizations have promoted moringa planting as a strategy to fight childhood nutrient deficiency. In developing nations, the science is not in question, so why doesn't anyone in North America or Europe grow it? 2 reasons. First, moringa is tropical. It doesn't survive frost. That makes people dismiss it immediately. But here's what they're missing. Moringa grows absurdly fast. In warm climates, it can grow 10 to 15 feet in a single season. Even in temperate zones, you can grow moringa as an annual. Plant it after your last frost, and within 60 to 90 days, you'll have a small tree producing harvestable leaves. You can also grow it in a large container and bring it indoors for winter. It doesn't need a greenhouse. It doesn't need special equipment. Second, moringa doesn't fit the Western gardening aesthetic. It's not a neat row of greens. It's a gangly, fast-growing tree with feathery leaves. Garden magazines don't feature it. Seed catalogs don't promote it. It's not photogenic in the way a raised bed of rainbow chard is. But nutrition doesn't care about aesthetics. And if you're growing food for health rather than Instagram, moringa should be on your list. The leaves can be eaten fresh in salads, cooked like spinach, or dried and ground into a powder that you can add to smoothies, soups, and baked goods. That powder retains its nutritional value for months, so you're not just growing a seasonal crop, you're growing a storable, concentrated food supply that rivals anything you could buy in a supplement store. And you're doing it for the cost of a single seed packet. There's a financial angle here that's worth considering too. Moringa powder sells online for $15 to $30 a pound. A single moringa tree in a warm climate can produce several pounds of dried leaf powder per year. Even grown as an annual in a short-season climate, one tree can yield enough leaves to produce a quarter pound or more of dried powder. Multiply that by 3 or 4 trees, and you've replaced a year's worth of supplement purchases with a garden crop that costs almost nothing to maintain. The deepest advantage of moringa is one that rarely gets discussed. Moringa leaves contain a compound called isothiocyanate, along with chlorogenic acid, both of which have been studied for their role in regulating blood sugar and reducing inflammation. Preliminary research has also found that moringa leaf extract can reduce cholesterol levels in animal models. This is a plant that doesn't just fill nutritional gaps. It actively contains compounds being investigated for their ability to address the exact chronic health conditions that affect hundreds of millions of people worldwide. And it grows from a seed you can order online for less than the cost of a cup of coffee. Stinging nettle, the plant people run from, here's one that most gardeners actively try to kill. Stinging nettle, the plant with the tiny hairs that inject formic acid into your skin when you brush against it. People treat it as a weed, a nuisance, something to eradicate. And in doing so, they're removing one of the most nutritionally complete wild foods that exists. Cooked nettle leaves, once the sting is neutralized by heat, contain more iron than spinach, more calcium than kale, significant amounts of magnesium, potassium, and vitamins A, C, and K, plus a protein content that rivals legumes for a leafy green. Nettle has been used medicinally for thousands of years across Europe and Asia. Modern research has investigated its anti-inflammatory properties, its potential role in managing blood sugar levels, and its use as a natural antihistamine. But the real reason nettle belongs in this conversation is the labor equation. Nettle requires zero effort to grow. In most temperate climates, it already grows wild. If you establish a patch in a corner of your property, it comes back on its own, year after year, with zero replanting, zero fertilizing, and zero pest management. No insect eats it, no disease bothers it, no animal grazes it. It is the ultimate low-maintenance, high-output perennial food source. You harvest the young tips in spring and early summer, wearing gloves. You steam them, sauté them, or dry them for tea. The flavor is earthy and rich, somewhere between spinach and green tea. And the cost is nothing. Literally $0, zero inputs, and zero maintenance for a nutrient-dense food that produces reliably for decades. Most gardeners spend hundreds of dollars a year on seeds, soil amendments, fertilizers, and pest control to grow crops that deliver a fraction of the nutrition nettle provides for free. That's not smart gardening. That's gardening on autopilot, doing what everyone else does because nobody told you there was a better option. Lamb's quarters, the weed that outperforms your garden. Speaking of plants people pull out without thinking, let's talk about lamb's quarters. Chenopodium album. It shows up uninvited in garden beds, compost piles, and disturbed soil all over North America, Europe, and Asia. Most gardeners yank it out and throw it on the compost pile without a second thought. That's a mistake. Lamb's quarters has been analyzed and found to contain more vitamin A, more vitamin C, more calcium, and more protein per serving than cultivated spinach. It's a close relative of quinoa, which costs $6 to $10 a pound at the grocery store. The seeds of lamb's quarters are edible and can be cooked exactly like quinoa. So you're pulling out a free, self-seeding source of both greens and pseudo-grain, and replacing it with crops you have to buy, plant, water, fertilize, and protect. The flavor is mild, almost buttery, and the leaves hold up well to cooking. Young leaves can be eaten raw in salads, older leaves cooked down beautifully. And because lamb's quarters is technically a weed, it thrives in poor soil, handles drought, resists pests, and self-seeds aggressively. Once you stop fighting it and start harvesting it, you have a perennial food source that costs nothing and produces abundantly. This is one of those moments where the conventional gardening mindset actually works against you. We've been trained to see any plant we didn't intentionally plant as an enemy. But some of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth are the ones we didn't plant. They're the ones that showed up on their own, adapted perfectly to your local conditions, and tried to feed you while you were busy pulling them out. Purslane, the omega-3 powerhouse in your driveway. Purslane is another one that gets sprayed, pulled, and cursed by gardeners everywhere. It's a low-growing succulent with thick, fleshy leaves that appears in sidewalk cracks, garden paths, and neglected corners. And it happens to contain the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids of any leafy green plant ever tested. That's worth repeating. Purslane contains more omega-3s than any other leafy green. Specifically, it's rich in alpha-linolenic acid, the plant-based omega-3 that your body converts into the same EPA and DHA found in fish oil. Most people spend $20 to $40 a month on fish oil supplements to get their omega-3s. Purslane gives it to you for free from a plant that grows in gravel. Beyond omega-3s, purslane is rich in vitamins A, C, and E, magnesium, potassium, and calcium. It contains beta-lane pigments with antioxidant properties, the same compounds found in beets. It has more vitamin E than spinach. And it's a source of melatonin, the sleep-regulating hormone, at concentrations higher than any other fruit or vegetable tested. Purslane tastes slightly lemony and has a pleasant, succulent crunch. It's excellent in salads, stir-fries, and soups. In many Mediterranean and Asian cuisines, it's a staple ingredient, not a weed. The disconnect between how the rest of the world treats purslane and how American and British gardeners treat it is staggering. If you have a sunny patch of soil, you can grow purslane without trying. If it already grows near you, even better. Stop killing it, start eating it. You're walking past a free omega-3 supplement every time you step outside. Dandelion, the entire free pharmacy, yes, dandelion. The thing you've been poisoning your lawn to eliminate. Every part of the dandelion plant is edible and nutritious. The leaves, the flowers, the roots, and even the stems all have documented nutritional and medicinal value. Dandelion greens contain more vitamin A per serving than carrots, more iron and calcium per serving than spinach. They're rich in vitamin C, K, and several B vitamins. The roots contain inulin, a prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria. The flowers can be made into tea, wine, or eaten raw. The entire plant has been used in traditional medicine across every culture that encounters it. Modern research has explored dandelion root extract for its effects on liver function, its potential as a natural diuretic, and preliminary studies on its impact on certain cancer cell lines. The science is early but promising, and the nutritional profile is already well established. But here's the part that should frustrate every gardener who spends money on greens at the store. Dandelion is free. It grows everywhere. It requires no planting, no watering, no fertilizing, no pest control. It produces food from early spring until hard freeze. It comes back every year without fail. And Americans spend billions of dollars annually on chemicals specifically designed to kill it. We are actively paying money to destroy one of the most nutrient-dense, medicinally valuable, freely available food sources on the planet so our lawns look uniform. That might be the most expensive gardening mistake anyone makes, and most people don't even realize they're making it. If you want to grow dandelion intentionally rather than foraging it from potentially treated lawns, you can buy cultivated varieties that produce larger, more tender leaves than their wild counterparts. Italian dandelion varieties, sometimes labeled as chicory or catalogna in seed catalogs, produce abundant greens with a pleasant bitterness that mellows beautifully when sautéed with garlic and olive oil. A row of cultivated dandelion in your garden will produce greens from early spring through late fall, surviving frosts that kill almost everything else. And here's the kicker. Dandelion roots can be dried, roasted, and brewed as a coffee substitute. It's caffeine-free, naturally bitter in a pleasant way, and has been used as a coffee alternative in Europe for centuries, particularly during wartime when real coffee was scarce. So from one plant you get salad greens, cooked greens, flour-based beverages, root-based tea and coffee, and a prebiotic fiber source. Name another single plant that offers that much versatility at zero cost. Amaranth, the ancient grain that doubles as a green. Amaranth was a staple crop of the Aztec civilization. It was so central to their culture and diet that When Spanish conquistadors wanted to dismantle Aztec society, one of their strategies was to ban the cultivation of amaranth. Think about that. A colonial power saw this plant as so important to the people it was conquering that destroying the plant was considered a military strategy. Today, amaranth is making a slow comeback as a trendy grain in health food stores, where it sells for premium prices. But what most people don't know is that the leaves of the amaranth plant are as nutritious as the grain, and in some ways more so. Amaranth greens are rich in protein, calcium, iron, vitamins A and C, and folate. They cook down like spinach but with a slightly sweeter, earthier flavor. The grain itself is a complete protein, containing all essential amino acids and is naturally gluten-free. It's high in lysine, an amino acid that most grains lack. One plant gives you both a highly nutritious green and a calorie-dense, protein-rich grain. That's two crops from one planting in the same space with minimal effort. Amaranth grows quickly, tolerates heat and drought, and produces prolifically. It self-seeds so aggressively that once you plant it, you may never need to plant it again. In warm climates, it can produce multiple harvests of both leaves and grain in a single growing season. It grows well in poor soil. It handles neglect. A single packet of amaranth seeds costs $2 to $4. The grain sells in stores for $6 to $12 a pound. The greens don't even show up in most grocery stores because they're so rarely cultivated commercially. You'd be growing something most people can't even buy, from a plant that practically takes care of itself. Garden cress, the forgotten cousin, don't confuse this with watercress, though they share a name. Garden cress, Lepidium sativum, is a separate plant entirely, and it deserves its own recognition. Garden cress is one of the fastest-growing edible plants you can cultivate. It goes from seed to harvest in 7 to 14 days, not weeks, days. That speed alone makes it remarkable, but garden cress also delivers impressive nutrition for such a small, fast crop. It's rich in iron, folate, vitamins A and C, and contains compounds called glucosinolates that have been studied for their cancer-preventive potential. In many parts of the Middle East and India, garden cress seeds are used as a traditional remedy for iron deficiency and are given to new mothers and growing children specifically for their mineral content. You can grow garden cress on a wet paper towel. You can grow it in a shallow dish on your kitchen counter. You don't need soil, sunlight, or even a window. It grows indoors under ambient light. It grows in winter. It grows anywhere. And it gives you a nutrient-dense microgreen in less time than it takes most seeds to germinate. For anyone who says they don't have space, time, or the right conditions to grow nutrient-dense food, garden cress removes every excuse. A small tray, some seeds, some water, and 7 days. That's it. You've just grown food that's denser in vitamins and minerals than most produce in the grocery store. Malabar spinach, the heat-proof nutrient machine. Most nutrient-dense greens have a weakness. They bolt in heat. Spinach, lettuce, arugula, even many kale varieties turn bitter, go to seed, and become useless once temperatures climb. This leaves a gap in the growing season, usually the hottest months, where gardeners have limited options for fresh, nutritious greens. Malabar spinach fills that gap completely. It's not actually spinach at all. It's a tropical vine, Basella alba, that thrives in heat and humidity. While your real spinach is dying in July, Malabar spinach is just getting started. It loves temperatures above 80 degrees. It grows faster the hotter it gets. And nutritionally, it delivers. Malabar spinach is rich in vitamins A and C, iron, calcium, and contains soluble fiber and antioxidant compounds. The leaves are thick, slightly mucilaginous, and hold up well in stir-fries and soups. It grows vertically on a trellis, meaning it takes up almost no ground space. A single plant can produce harvestable leaves for 3 to 4 months straight in warm conditions. What makes Malabar spinach strategically valuable isn't just what it contains. It's when it produces. It gives you nutrient-dense greens during the exact window when almost nothing else in your garden can. That's not just nutrition. That's planning. That's thinking about your garden as a system rather than a collection of individual plants. Kale sprouts and microgreens. The nutrient multiplier. Here's something most people don't realize about nutrient density. The youngest version of a plant is almost always more nutrient dense than the mature version. Sprouts and microgreens, the seedlings harvested just days after germination, can contain 4 to 40 times the concentration of certain vitamins and minerals compared to their adult counterparts. A 2012 study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry tested 25 varieties of microgreens and found that the young seedling versions of plants like red cabbage, cilantro, garnet amaranth, and radish contain dramatically higher concentrations of vitamin C, E, and K, as well as beta-carotene than the mature plants. This means you can take any nutrient-dense plant, grow it as a microgreen, and multiply its nutritional impact several times over in a fraction of the space and time. A small tray of broccoli microgreens grown on your kitchen counter in 5 days can deliver more sulforaphane, the compound studied for its cancer-fighting potential, than a full head of mature broccoli from the store. You don't need a garden for this. You don't need outdoor space. You need a tray, some seeds, a spray bottle, and a windowsill. The cost is pennies. The nutritional return is enormous. And the turnaround time is days, not months. This is the ultimate expression of what this entire video is about. The most nutrient-dense approach to growing food isn't about bigger gardens, more space, or more money. It's about knowing which plants deliver the most nutrition per unit of effort, space, and time, and then focusing on those. Collard greens, the underrated southern powerhouse. People outside the American South tend to overlook collard greens entirely. They're not trendy. They don't appear on superfood lists. They lack the marketing buzz of kale. But collard greens scored 62.49 on that same nutrient density study, significantly higher than popular crops like blueberries, sweet potatoes, and cauliflower. They deliver massive amounts of vitamins K, A, and C, along with meaningful calcium, folate, and manganese. But what makes collard truly special from a gardener's perspective is their durability. Collard handle heat that would destroy lettuce and spinach. They tolerate cold down into the low 20s, and in many climates they actually improve after a frost because the cold triggers the plant to convert starches into sugars, sweetening the leaves. That means collard can produce food across a wider temperature range than almost any other green. They're also remarkably pest-resistant once established, especially compared to other brassicas. While your broccoli and cabbage get decimated by cabbage worms and aphids, collards shrug off most pest pressure, particularly the larger, more mature plants. A well-established collard plant can produce harvestable leaves for 12 to 18 months in mild climates. Some gardeners report individual plants surviving and producing for 2 to 3 years. The long-term value calculation is stunning. A single collard transplant costs $1 to $3. From that one plant, you can harvest 50 to 100 leaves over its lifetime. Each leaf is a serving of one of the most nutrient-dense foods available. The cost per serving of nutrition from a homegrown collard plant is essentially unmeasurable. It rounds down to zero. Sweet potato leaves, the hidden half of a familiar crop. Almost everyone knows sweet potatoes for their roots. The orange tubers are a staple crop worldwide. But in most of the world, the leaves are just as important as the roots, and in some regions more so. Sweet potato leaves are eaten daily across much of Africa, Asia, and the Pacific Islands. They are rich in protein for a leafy green, high in vitamins A and C, loaded with iron, and contain antioxidant compounds that have been studied for their anti-inflammatory and anti-diabetic properties. In the United States, sweet potato leaves are almost completely unknown as a food source. People grow the tubers and throw away the greens, or they grow ornamental sweet potato vines for their beautiful foliage and never think to eat the leaves. Both are edible. The nutritional profile of sweet potato leaves is comparable to spinach in many categories and exceeds it in others. The leaves can be harvested continuously throughout the growing season without significantly reducing tuber production as long as you don't strip the plant bare. This means every sweet potato plant you grow is actually two crops. You're already doing the work, already watering, already fertilizing. The greens are a free bonus, a high-nutrition harvest you've been throwing away. If you grow sweet potatoes, start harvesting the young, tender leaves and shoot tips. Sauté them with garlic, add them to soups, use them anywhere you'd use spinach. You'll get months of additional nutrient-dense food from a crop that's already in your garden. Why the system ignores these plants? There's a reason these plants don't show up in garden centers, seed catalogs, or gardening magazines. The commercial gardening industry is built around selling you inputs: seeds, soil, fertilizer, pest control, tools, raised bed kits, irrigation systems. The plants that generate the most revenue for that industry are the ones that need the most inputs. Plants that require specific soil amendments, regular fertilizing, pest management, staking, pruning, and careful timing. Watercress growing in a bowl of water doesn't sell anything. Dandelion growing in your lawn doesn't sell anything. Purslane growing in your driveway doesn't sell anything. Nettle coming back on its own year after year doesn't sell anything. These plants are bad for business. They're too easy, too free, too resilient.